I don't know if you guys knew. Okay, so here we go, everyone. I went ahead and posted the video of finishing this painting, and just a couple of things to point out, and what we're really going to work at today, which is working with warm and cool colors. So as I always say, the main focus on a landscape painting is not to capture what it looks like, not to make it look like a photograph. My opinion on that is, if you really want a photographic looking image of a landscape, then grab your camera and take a photo. It goes way faster. So the reason we paint it is, well, part of it is just for the experience, for studying it ourselves, but being able to capture even more of the essence of it. Okay, so the real essence I was trying to capture with this piece was the warmth. So if you actually could take this and compare it to the real painting, if I can, or the photograph that I worked from, and if I can tilt my camera to see that, you can see there's a lot of difference there. Okay, I've made a lot of changes, simplified it. My rocks are way warmer than in the photograph because I wanted to increase that and capture that better. And there's just a lot of other simplifications that I've made in my piece, okay? So that's where, when we decide on our piece, we use a photo or we look at a scene, a live scene, as our reference. But all decisions, we should always make our decisions on our painting by when it either feels like what we're trying to capture, or it just, we've captured something and makes it beautiful, if that's what we're going for, dramatic, if that's what we're going for, or peaceful, or whatever it is that you're going for. All right. Okay, so the real thing that I noticed a lot of you guys, or at least some of you guys were still doing, it looked like you're using browns and grays for shadows. And what we really want to do is avoid that. Shadows are not gray. They're only gray if they're on a gray surface. And shadows are not black. They're only black if they're on a black surface. So a shadow does not have its own color. The shadowed area is simply a darker, duller version of whatever the surface it's laying on. Okay, so shadows are always changing color. And what we really want to do, though, is capture a sense of atmosphere, especially in a landscape, but really that's important in a lot of pieces. So we want to capture a real sense of the atmosphere of this piece. And in order to do that, we have to understand how to work with warm and cool colors. So that's going to be the challenge today, is working with warm and cool colors. So what I'm going to have you guys do, looking a little blurry here on my camera. There we go. Now it's focusing in. Let me tilt this a little bit. All right, so on a paper, if you remember last time, I was talking about the 4 basic forms that everything is made of. So if you guys can just, with a pen or pencil, doesn't matter what you use, if you can go ahead, and you don't have to do them exactly like mine, but you're going to do 6, because we're going to work with the 6 main colors, the 3 primary, 3 secondary colors, and we're just going to draw 6 different forms, 3-dimensional forms, and we're going to paint each one so it looks like that color. So this one will be a blue cylinder, an orange cone, a green cube, a yellow sphere, another cylinder on its side, so that we have a sense of how that works, and then a pyramid. And I'm just doing that red. You can mix yours up differently, but if you guys could do that, get that drawn. Mine are about, what's that, like 2 inches or so. You don't need to make them too big. Then once you have those drawn, go ahead and get your colors ready in your palette here, right? So, get your oranges, your orange, red, yellow, choose one of the blues. Hopefully you have a number of blues. We're going to talk about working with blues, and then a green. Let me think here. Actually, I'm going to give you a challenge. Don't use green paint. Well, you're actually going to need for one. Okay. Oh, when we get there. So you can go ahead and get one of your greens ready as well. All right. So I'm going to do that as well with my palette. Get the water in there. Make sure you got plenty of paint so you don't run out. My violet, green. And I'm going to do a couple of blues here. I'm just going to mute one of you guys because it's making a bit of a scuffling sound. All right, get them all mixed up and ready to go. Don't start painting yet though, okay? Let me, because there's very particular things. This may be something some of you guys have done before. This may not be new, but even if it is, it's always a good practice to come back to it and practice it again. It's even something that you'll notice I'm going to need a little bit of practice with mine as well. Don't forget to, you might want to test your colors off to the side. Make sure you've got them all bold enough so you're not working with pale colors. You want them bold, but not so much that they're opaque. Yikes. And green got into there. Okay, so get our colors all ready. So, okay, so we're back to it again. So our 6 forms, 6 colors, and I just scattered my primary and secondary colors around here. But I want to first take a moment to just grab this little scrap paper, and we're going to lay in the basic color wheel. Now you might see it done differently. I always teach with seeing the yellow at the top, and there's a reason for that. Out of habit, I've gotten to putting the red on the left side. You don't need to do this, by the way. This is just watch for a minute here. This is not necessary, unless, I mean, you can if you want, but you might fall behind and then be trying to catch up. Okay, but I just want to show this. Our primary colors. Yellow, red, blue, and then of course the secondary, we have our orange, our violet, and our green. Okay, so these are our 6 colors. So one thing we notice, first of all, when we're painting, we also need to pay attention to value. Value is dark and light. So whenever you hear me speak of value, I'm talking about how light it is or how dark it is. Okay, that's value. I always put, the reason I always like to put the yellow on the top, because it starts with our lightest value at the top and our darkest down here. Now, you might say, yeah, but my purple looks lighter than my blue. Well, that's simply because I have a little too much water in there. But typically, as a color, when this is to its full hue, this is going to be our darkest value. So that's why I like to teach with always putting the yellow at the top, okay? Then we have warm and cool. And where does the line drawn is, it's sort of at an angle like this, where these are the warm colors and these are our cool colors over here. And then there would be the other ones right in between here, which sort of fall right on that line, which would of course be our warm greens. So where we get that yellow green, which is not really that warm, but it's also not very cool. And then of course we would have the same thing over on this side here when we get our reddish purple. Okay, so once again, so it's more of a spectrum, as you guys already know. The color wheels falls on a spectrum idea. It's not cut and dry, but you have to be keeping things like this in mind. Okay, so when we are trying to make a highlighted side in any sort of painting, even if we are painting a landscape, painting a building, you want to be thinking about where the sun is hitting. If you want to make it feel like a sunny day, you're going to somehow have to be working more, get hints of this color in there somehow. Okay, don't make it too bold because it's too much. It has to be fairly subtle, and then you have to get some of the cool colors over into your shadows. Okay, and again, which you can see is exactly what I did with the rocks here. Okay, and I have the and in my shadow here. So that's why I brought in some blue and purple over into my shadowed side of my roofs, and some blues and purples into the shadows of the rocks. And I have these warm yellowish, brownish colors on the highlighted side. Okay, and just hints of it. Okay, okay, so that's what I mean. We need to be able to always be thinking about that here. So the challenge that I've put before you, now when you first start this, you can get all mixed up and create all sorts of mess, because you also have to think about what happens when you mix colors. Okay, so for instance, if I am thinking, okay, my violet, if I'm going to make my violet shape and I think, okay, I'm going to paint this purple and I want this to feel warm on top, so I'm just going to add some yellow to my purple. Well, that's why it's so important to understand the color wheel, because if I just add yellow to purple, I'm going to end up with brown, and it's not going to feel very warm. Okay, so I need to be a little bit careful that, well, let's not just grab yellow there. So how can I warm up purple? Well, just a hint of red. Okay, so I'm not going to just grab yellow over here. On the same note, if I'm doing my blue side over here, if I just throw some red down, now it's going to go purple. Or if I throw some yellow down, it's going to go green. And I want my whole piece to feel blue. I don't want it to feel like it's all multicolored. I want it to feel like it's blue with cool shadows, warm highlights. Okay, so that's why every artist really wants to really learn and study the color wheel, at least those basics, to understand. And that's also, let me show you on my palette here, for example, why there are so many blues. Okay, look at my palette here. I've got one red, one orange, one yellow, actually two reds. I've got my alizarin crimson, which is a cooler red. It's much more purple. So I got a warm red and a cool red over here. But look at my blues. I've got 1, 2, 3. I've got 6 blues. Okay, and blues are either, you've got warm blue and cool blue. So this is a much warmer one, and these are going to be cooler. Okay, and that's why, because if I try and mix any warm color with blue, it creates a brand new color, and it's not blue anymore. So when it comes to blue, I'm going to have to really be working with multi-blues. So that's why in my palette, I always have a number of blues, greens. Okay, so I've got a cool green, a warm green, and then a kind of one in the middle here. Okay, so that's how I'm always determining by that there. Okay, and some of my green got into my ochre here. That's too bad. All right. Okay. So that's why I don't like to buy a palette with colors. I like to buy my own colors, and then I can set up my own palette. And that just takes time. I mean, that took me many years to figure that all out to what I really like and what works for me. Okay. So let me demonstrate one of these, okay? Let's see, which one should I do? So I'm gonna take I'll just work right with my green here. And oh yeah, we're also going to, we're gonna put in, so we're not only gonna paint the block, we're gonna paint the surface that it's sitting on, and we're gonna paint in a cast shadow, okay? And we're also gonna, so whatever surface I'm on, I'm gonna make it a different color. I'm gonna make it something contrasting with this here. Now, first thing I need to determine is my light source. I'm gonna lift this up a little bit, my view, so you can see the whole thing. Because I'm working from my imagination, I cannot see a light source. I have to determine where it's going to be, okay? I am simply going to determine that my light source is off in my left corner here. So I'm just gonna draw a little sun. So there's my light source that keeps me in mind. Just a simple thing, when you're working out of your imagination and it creates cast shadows. Oh, someone's trying to call me. I gotta stop that a second. Come on. Someone is calling me and I'm trying to hang it up. And it won't hang up. There we go. Okay, back again. Sorry about that. Okay. I always just make my shadows go horizontal. Keep them skinny. And that's gonna be my cast shadow, okay? Every shadow, because of the way we're looking at it, gets very skinny just because of the perspective. And I'd have to teach you a whole bunch of stuff on perspective. So I'm just with my pencil, I'm gonna draw as if there's a shadow going off to the side. Each of my shapes here, okay? So it comes from the corner. I could have done that one better. That should have been more straight angled. My sphere is going to be an ellipse shadow. My cylinder is a very different sort of shape, shadow, than the other one. And my pyramid shape looks pretty much the same as my cone shape. Okay, so I would have these established as well. All right, so here we go. I'm gonna create a green block here, and my light source is here. So my warmest is going to be at the top. So this is going to be my warmest side here. This needs to feel very warm green. This is my other side. Should feel also fairly warm, but a little more in the middle. And then this will be my cool green. Okay. Now, once again, as I always say, I really, really prefer to not have flat color. So on each of these, just to create interest, I'm going to try and always work with also two colors in there. So I'm going to start right away with my warm side. I'm going to, as you should recall, hopefully, with watercolor, we start with light and we go to dark. So I'm going to first just lay in a warm green, warm, because yellow is present in green, I can lay that in right away. And I'm just going to bring in some green because I don't want it to feel yellow. Okay, so here's my little bit much, maybe. Now I have to think value as well. I cannot go dark whatever I do. This has got to stay nice and light as well, okay? And my tissue, I'm gonna lift up a little bit of that. Okay, so I have a nice little bit of gradation happening there, which I always like. We're gonna go ahead and lay in this side. Now this is probably gonna leak into there. I should have chosen a shape that doesn't have hard edges, okay, because I'm already making a faux pas, which is working right up to the edge, okay. I'm gonna pull a little bit of this down here, just get a little bit of gradation there happening. A little bit of light. Just ever so subtle hint Have some yellow in there. But I definitely want this to be darker than the top here. And let's go ahead right away. As I said, hopefully this will dry fast enough. But I'm going to go ahead and do the shadowed side by putting in my green, establishing the base color. And I've got my colors already. My blue. We're going to cool this down immediately. Come on, there we go. Too much. Got to be ready for that. Spread that out. So don't panic about it. Okay, and the beauty of watercolor, well, really any paint, one of the beauties is it takes a bit, you know, to get what it is you're looking for. Okay, so but that's a cooler green there. Okay, so it's cooler and it's darker. So I've got warm. Now, as I look at this and judge this and think about this, I'm feeling the contrast is too much right now. I think this needs to feel a little less yellow because it almost feels like it's just a yellowed side and it doesn't feel like it's the exact same side as, or the exact same color as this side, just in the sunshine. Okay, so, but that's okay because I can go back to that and I'm going to wait till that's dry and then go back and work at that one. Again, don't overwork the color or the paint. You can always come back to it, all right, and layer it. So take your time. So if I'm doing a yellow, well, I can't really warm up my yellow much, can I? I'll just do this quick. So all I can do with my yellow, so you have to be thinking, don't just blindly follow rules. You have to think what it is you're doing. So my yellow, I can't warm that up at all. If I add red or orange to it, that's going to totally change it. All I can do is change the value. So in my highlighted side, I need to really lighten that up. Okay. So as I'm painting this one, and you guys at whatever point you want, go ahead. So I'm going to drop some pure, clean color, excuse me, drop some clean color onto that highlighted side. And my shadowed side, again, I hope no one mixed up gray. You don't want any gray. I'm going to work with my smear of purple here because I want ever so little bit. But that's how I create my shadowed side. A dull yellow is adding its complementary. Okay, and I'm just barely dropping that in there. So you see it doesn't look purple at all. If it gets too much, let's add some more yellow into it. Okay, so grab some yellow paint.
I'm sorry, you created the highlight on the yellow by just doing a very dilute.
Yep.
Okay.
Exactly. Yeah, because I can't warm up yellow. Yellow's so warm, but I can lighten it. Okay, so highlights are always warmer and lighter. Okay, so it always has to be lighter and warmer. Well, if I'm already working with a warm color and I can't warm it up, I can at least lighten it up. Okay, so you can see my sphere. Okay, so see my shadow? I use purple, but it doesn't look purple at all. Okay, it's just a shadowed side, a dark, dull yellow. So dark and dull, it's almost starting to even look brown, which is okay, but not brown. If I would have dropped in a whole bunch of purple, it would look like I have this nasty brown stripe. But trust me, it's not like it's the end of the world if you did that. I've done that so many times, right? That's how you learn, by making those mistakes. So it's not the end of the world if you put in too much. That's how anyone learns, by making those mistakes. And that's why it's good to, to practice these sort of things. So it's because of course it's nicer to make your mistake on a practice sheet than it is on a final painting. Okay, so but that's our challenge. So now we have a the sphere. Okay. Violet. What am I going to do with my violet? Yeah, well, I can think about it. Okay, if I'm going to make it violet, if I'm going to make it purple, I have to warm it up. Well, do I use yellow? As I already said, I'm not going to use yellow because yellow is going to make it go brown, and it's my highlight should not be duller. If I had yellow, it's going to dull it, and I want my highlight to be brighter and lighter. Okay. Now, red is present in violet, right? Violet is made of red and blue. So simply with violet, I need to just make my my highlighted side a little bit warmer with a little bit more towards the pink, because of course lighter. And then on the shadowed side, a little bit more towards the blue. All right. So I will lay that in now. Again, violet's very bold. I'm gonna, because this is a round surface and I want nice soft edges, I'm gonna do a wet and wet technique. So I'm gonna lay in water right away. And I didn't mention this before, I always have magenta. I didn't prepare it. And I'm gonna lay in my, use magenta in my warm highlight. And then let's go ahead and get my purple in there, violet, whatever. Make those run together, carry that violet all the way down, and then we'll get some blue in there right away along the bottom. Now you have to control this a little bit because you do want it to feel your shadows and your highlights going fairly straight. I'm tipping this a little bit. I want that to creep up a little more. Still feels a little bit dull. No, I think I'm going to wait though. I was going to lay in some more purple, but I'm going to let that dry. I can always glaze another layer over it, but I have it really nice, nice and even, nice and straight. And I know if I start trying to touch it up, so it's not finished. If I start touching that though, I'm just going to mess with it. Okay. So, all right, I'm going to go back over to my green block here, and we're going to paint pretend it's sitting on a red table. So I'm going to go ahead and paint my red table in over the whole thing. Paint right over the shadow, not around it. Oops, went out of the lines there. It's not the end of the world. Okay, so just nice, bold, rich red. I'm just gonna soften the edge there. Okay, so I can't do my sphere yet because I see it's still wet. Okay, my shadow is still wet here, so I can't touch that yet. But this one is dry, not quite. See, it's creeping in over here. So, but because we're doing this demo, I want to make sure I get it done in time. So let's let that dry, and then I'm going to glaze my shadow in over top of that. So in the meantime, orange. Let's go down here, paint in orange. Once again, actually, because it's round, I'm going to wet the surface. Now, because when just glancing up, I see most people's heads are down, so that's cool. So I'm guessing most of you guys are kind of doing your own and listening to me, and that's good. Feel free to ask any questions. Just unmute yourself and ask me a question and I can take a look at your piece or something like that. All right, a shadow and a highlight on a cone has to go to the point. Everything comes out of that point there. And this is now my highlighted side, so that gets lighter. So see how I'm getting that much, much, much lighter on the left. And it's starting to look 3D, but it's a little too pale for my liking. I want that nice and bold and rich, so I'm gonna get my orange. Come on. There we go. Charge that with a bunch of orange. You can see that nicely moving to the left there, creating a nice soft gradation going from, okay? But it doesn't feel cool enough yet. And so this is really, really dangerous. Just, I know from experience, blue added to orange will just make that go brown so fast. So I need such a little amount here. So I'm gonna first get rid of a bunch of it. And here we go. If I'm not careful, that's gonna go greenish, brownish, whatever. So I'm just gonna drop a little bit of it in there. I'm dabbing at it, actually. And I'm gonna go back in with some bold orange, and you'll see what we're starting to get is a nice, come on, there we go. Much more neutralized orange. And unfortunately, I see it's creeping across here. So because of the paper, the wrinkle in my paper, it's going across here, which it shouldn't be doing. So I have to keep lifting that. I have to balance my paper because it's watercolor. And I gotta get that to stop doing that. There we go. Looks like it's gonna keep wanting to do that. So I just have to watch this as I go. Okay, so very subtle blue in here to neutralize that. Turn my page around to get it to flow. So I've actually propped it on an angle because I want that to stop flowing up that way there. But for the sake of the demo, I really want to, because it's 8:45, so I want to get this shadow done, okay? So my shadowed on my red surface. First thing I want to do is neutralize it. I want to make that red dull. So I always do that by its complementary. Complementary, oh, by the way, complementary means the opposite, okay? It's the one that's opposite on the color wheel, okay? So straight across from red, if I go straight across, is green. So green will always make red dull and dark, okay? Opposite of blue, goes straight across, is orange, and opposite of yellow, straight across is purple, and of course vice versa, okay? So if I want to make my red look like a dull red, I need a tiny, tiny amount of its complementary. So a little bit of green first, not too much, or it's actually going to look green. And I don't want it to look green. I just want to get dark and dull. Okay. Now my red, I'm overworking because the red wasn't completely dry. I can bring in a little bit of red into it again because I don't want that to get too brown. Drop in a little bit of the green again. And the shadows, by the way, are always darkest near the object that is casting the shadow, okay? So my shadow should have some gradation here. Now I also want it to feel cool. It still feels like a very warm shadow. So I'm going to cool it down with, again, just a hint of blue. It's almost too much. So I dry that out. And let's get some red in there. So now let's pull this out. So we've got, by the end, it should feel cool. Should feel cooler than the surface, and also feel, but it should still feel red. That's the challenge, is don't make it look like it feels like a brown blotch or a blue or something like that, or a purple. Our brain should still be interpreting that as red with the shadow on it. Okay, let's sit there and wait. I see my orange is creeping. Sorry, go ahead.
What color did you do for the shadow over the top of the red?
The opposite of red, which is green. That was the first color I did.
Oh, okay. Oh, you did two on top of the red, green,
No.
and what?
Then I used a blue to cool it down.
Okay.
Okay. So the complementary will always dull a color. So the opposite of red is green. Okay. And I used the blue because it's opposite of orange. That's how I got this kind of dull orange. Okay. And here's where the catch is. This is why you can't follow rules blindly. I did not use the complementary here. Okay. The reason why I didn't use the complementary on my purple is because the complementary is yellow, which is a very warm color. I don't want to warm up my shadow. Does that make sense? So that's why you can't just, oh, okay, just blindly follow rules, because here's a case where I'm not using any complementary color at all, because I really think it would mess up the piece. Okay. So that's why, when you're learning, there's so much to try to remember. I get that. So that's why, that's part of the reason, hopefully with having the video, it will help, because you can go back to it again. Okay, so on that note, we're gonna bring a little bit more. I brought in glazing another layer over top of my purple here to get that richer. And bring in a little bit of blue again in the bottom. Put it on an angle to keep that blue from running uphill or running into my. So what we're doing with these shapes is really the same thing you do if you are painting a mountain, or you're painting a tree, or you're painting a house, or any of those sort of things. It's all applying the same principles, but of course you always have to, it varies with each specific thing that you're doing, and the rules are there to help and guide you, but of course the rest really can only be learned by experience, and that's the key, is just doing it, practicing it. And if, so this class is, a teaching technique is to help you when it comes to your final, when you're actually making a painting, to have more freedom and to avoid frustration of not being able to achieve what it is you want. Okay. Some people, they like to paint just simply maybe, for the therapy, the therapeutic, the enjoyment, or spiritually, whatever is going to be happening, ways to really communicate with God. And that's awesome. And, someone like that may not be trying to fill their mind with all of these things to remember. Because it's a lot to remember, learning all this sort of stuff. That's why you go to university to study it. But the hope, you know, in studying this in a class is later on when you are doing stuff, whether it's for therapy or whether it's to share with other people, whether you're, you know, doing it publicly, whether you want to, even just making a birthday card for someone, the more you know this, the more freedom, and it just comes naturally after a while. It really does. You hardly think about it. It's just so secondary, but it's like learning to ride a bike at the first, or learning how to surf or something like that. At the start, there's so much to remember, and you have to try not to get, you know, frustrated by it or anything like that. So I'm going to switch over to gallery view here because I'm just curious. Then maybe I can see what some of you guys have done, if anyone dares lift your page or tilt your camera or something like that, to be able to see if things are looking successful. That's wonderful. There you go. Yeah, Mary Beth, well done. Okay. Okay, you're going to do red surface. I'm going to encourage you to maybe the top ones for the surface, just for practice, pick a different color than red, just so you can practice with all of those. But that's really, really good. Yeah, definitely. Basically, if you can make things look like shadows without using, you know, black and gray, it's gonna just, it'll take your art to another level. Excuse me. How about you, Monique? It looks like you're at a pause. Are you? Fabulous, fabulous. Yeah, yeah. Very good. So you can go back into the cube on that, and you can probably, when it's dry, you can glaze in another blue onto that cool side to get a little more contrast there. I don't know if you could lift your highlight just with your brush on your cylinder, the cylinder laying down there. I don't know if the paint is dry already. If the paint's not dry, take your brush and go ahead and try and lift some of the paint out of that at the top edge there. Okay. So if you like, I don't know if you can see mine, just so it's lighter, because right now it looks pretty dark at a glance. Okay. Anyone else? Elizabeth, how about yours? There you go. Okay. Very good. Oh, I really like your shadow there on your cube. Your cube, you're going to need to get more contrast, but that's a really good start. Okay, that's a really good way you've laid that in there. And then, yeah, get some more contrast, but it's always best. You can always add more paint. It's really hard to remove it. Okay, your cylinder, the edge got a little hard there, eh? So it looks like the shadow got a little overworked because the darkest part, you have a hard line between your highlight and your shadow there, which you'd want to try and, you know, as you try it, soften that up a little bit. So, and then, yeah, same thing happened with your cube. There you go. There you go. That's really nice color for the shadow there. Okay. So next time, also on that yellow on the sphere as that's drying, it all ended up flowing into your highlight. So you have to watch that as you go and just keep lifting it out. Sometimes you can actually go back to a watercolor and you can lift it even after it's dry. Okay. Let's see if I have an example? Maybe I can show you. Sometimes just by wetting your brush, you can go back. It's dangerous. You can ruin this paper surface, but you can get it back again. Okay. So on yours, Elizabeth, yeah, you're totally on the right track. Work towards more contrast between your highlights and your shadows. Just getting bolder, which all takes time. Excellent. How about you, Katie? I really want to see yours because I didn't get to see yours last time, Katie. Or, well, finish what you're doing. Finish if you're right in the middle of it. I don't want to interrupt you. So Deb, you started lifting yours up there. There you go. Nice. Yeah, okay. I forgot to show the inside of the cylinder. Really nice, cool blues, and same with the pyramid there. And you could probably on your sphere glaze in and get a little bolder yet with the shadow, but that's the perfect start to it. I would probably just like it already looks three-dimensional, but you could get a little bolder if you want. And then definitely on the shadowed side of your cube, on the dark shadow side, lay in another glaze in another layer of blue to cool that down yet. And then darken the cast shadow too. You're gonna want to get your cast shadow a little bit darker.
So
But
is that the way that the end should go, the way she did it? She gray dated it, same from highlight to shadow? Because we didn't talk about the end of the cylinder.
the inside here, here, let me,
Deborah's cylinder that she just showed had the same gradation on the flat end as it did around it. Is that the way that
it would actually change. So it totally depends. So let me switch over to, let me change over to speaker view. Okay, here we go. So if you click and watch what I'm going to do here. Now with the cylinder, the reason why I did 2 cylinders is there's 2 ways to imagine the cylinder. Is it a flat surface? Is it closed? Or is it an open cylinder where I can see into the inside of it? Okay, so if it's a flat surface, like my blue one here, let me just quick, that's going to just be totally flat, right? Because it's a flat surface. And in this case, I'm using a nice warm blue, warm light blue, because it's really close to the sun. So that's going to just be fairly flat surface, all right? Because I like gradation, I'm just going to throw in a little bit of gradation there on that side. Okay, now, however, let's pretend that this cylinder is hollow. Okay, so it's like a tunnel, if that makes sense. So my shadowed side is now going to be opposite. The shadowed side, because it's curving around like this side is going to bounce, a little light is going to be bouncing into here. So I need to switch and get this a little wetter. So I need to switch and grab my magenta here. And get that warm light on the bottom. Okay, because this is going to be a little bit of that light bouncing up. So I'm going to keep pulling away, get that nice and light. And I'm going to get this a little bit bolder, richer, darker on the top. And I'm going a little too fast. You can see it's creeping into the other surface. And I need to make sure this is a soft edge. It's going a little hard edge on me here. So I got to soften that edge because it's round, very important. And let's cool this down, cool the deep dark area by dropping in some of that cool blue, and just dabbing at it. And the line, the way that goes is fairly important. Now, so you can see it's already starting to create that feel. But because this is getting deeper into the, I'll just call it a tunnel right here, I'm going to get that a little bit darker back in there as well. So again, working very carefully. So I'm just dropping the colors in, just dabbing at it because I don't want to overdo it. It is having trouble picking it up. I'm afraid of overdoing it, so that's why I'm just going so subtly and carefully. I'm trying to do this quick because I want to show you for you to be able to see how it should look, but in reality, it would have been better for me to have waited and glazed that in afterwards, but it's not bad. I think hopefully it'll still give you the idea of what you can get an idea of what I was trying to achieve. Okay, now here's where I think I can lift. Yeah, I'm going to try and see if I just keep going at this. This was fairly dry, but look at this. I can just keep going at that. Wash my brush, dry it, and look how much I can lift a highlight back into there.
Wow.
Okay, you see that wonderful highlight lifting up, and it's creating it nice and soft. Okay, so even though that was dry, with clear water, a wet brush, or dry fairly, okay, and you can see we've got a really nice highlight there. See that? Okay, this can get a little bit darker, but I really have to wait. I can't go in there anymore because that's gonna That's going to ruin things. So, okay. My shadow here, I look back and it still feels a little too dark for my, or sorry, too red for my liking. So I'm just going to glaze again. But it wasn't dry. I should have checked it first. Oh, here we go. Now it's starting to overwork. Should have waited. That's what I say. Patience, patience. Yeah, because now you can see what happens when you overwork something, when you go back into it. Now I've lightened it. Okay, see what's happened there? Okay, so that's showing you what not to do. Now I've got this nasty light area in my shadow and I'm trying to fill it, but what happened was I ended up sticking a bunch of water in there, clear. I didn't have enough paint on it, and as I keep fussing with this, I'm gonna make it worse and worse and worse. Patience is so important in watercolor, right? Okay, let's see, I haven't showed a blue surface, so I'm just gonna quick lay down on my orange here. Let's pretend it's on a blue table, and we're gonna paint right over that. I'm getting a little bit of brush stroke showing up here, which I don't like. There we go. Okay, got that spread out. A little bit of the orange is starting to creep out there. And then simply in my shadow, I might drop a hint of orange, but not much. Because I don't want to warm it up. I could do a little bit because it would bounce. Yeah, we could talk about bounce light, but that's, you know, after a while, there's just too much information to remember. But there's also something called reflected light, which I'm not going to get into with you guys. But it also takes the, makes it look even more three-dimensional when you start to work with bouncing light. Okay. I want to put, I'm looking at mine, I'm thinking I can go even a little bit darker and bluer yet with this. Perhaps even in my orange. Go ahead.
If you were bouncing it, you would add a little bit of the color of the surface into the shadow.
A little bit of it's bouncing. Like here, there in reality, there would actually be a little bit of this orange bouncing onto my blue surface here. So I could even pick up, so really close in reality, there would be just an ever so subtle hint of orange in there. Right. You just have to be really careful that it'll start to mess around with it. So something like that, I would wait till someone had a really good handle on working with just their warms and their cools, getting their shadows and stuff like that, and just laying them in, just very basic. And then I would introduce them to how to do reflected light. And also really, I would teach reflected light in a drawing course when you're working with pencil or charcoal, because then you don't have to bring in the color of it, only the value. So it's much easier. So, but yeah, so really we can keep on going. If I want to paint a green surface under my yellow sphere. Again, I would just paint right over my shadow and let that dry. I can't put that's still wet, so I can't put a surface there. I don't know. I'm just trying to use practice as many colors as possible. So that's why I'm picking different surfaces. I can't really do this. So let's go ahead and put my cylinder on an orange surface and then leave it at that. Wait, I think there's some out there yet. I didn't You didn't get to get any comments on their pieces yet. I don't think I saw you. Did I? Or did I? Is there? Katie, it was, that's what it was, right? I was going to look at yours, but you're still working on it. Did you want to show yours, Katie? And you can unmute yourself while you're showing it if you want to talk. So, and Doreen's too. I haven't seen Doreen's as well either. So,
Mine looks like this.
just gonna get Mary Beth there a second. So, there's your thumb.
What?
There you go.
Sorry.
There we go. Okay. Oh, where'd you go? Oh, someone else had to leave. Looks like someone left. So, okay, so now I can see yours. Oh, oh yeah, Mary Beth was talking about we should really learn how to do screen sharing and stuff like that. So, yes. So, okay, so I saw yours enough, Katie, to see. Yeah, on your cylinder, you can, so you've got a really nice light highlight. The edge, you can try and soften that out. The edge got a little bit hard for a curved object. You'd want to make that a little more gradual. And then I would go ahead and just really into the highlight of that, really, really, really pale, either red or magenta, whatever you have, to warm that up. Because right now it's just kind of light. It's going to all the way to white. So you could keep it really, really. Go ahead.
The red in the shadow?
No, not in the shadow, in the highlight. No, your shadow, you'd want to go with a cool color, more blue. But your shadow's already really dark, so I don't know if you need to. I'm talking about your purple cylinder. That's what I'm talking about. Okay.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, the purple cylinder. So you could bring a little bit of color into there. And then the shadow on the green surface, or on the red surface, your green cube, wait till that shadow is completely dry, the one that's laying on the red table or whatever it is, that shadow.
Figured it out. Dry first.
Yeah, you got to wait till it's totally dry, and then you'll want to, it got a little brown on you, so you had a little too much green in there. So you'd want to wait till it's totally dry and then just put another layer of red back over top of it again. Okay?
Okay.
Oh, and then that should help that not be quite so dull. So, okay, Doreen, I can see you peeking through your hand there. I think your screen must have froze. All I get is this great view of you looking through your hand. I'm gonna mute Katie there a second. So yeah, it looks like looks like Doreen's. Oh, there it is. Your camera's back again. Are you able to flip your camera or your piece and then just hold it as still as you possibly can? Okay, I'm looking upside down here. So it's, oh, I really like your cone. Look at that really nice contrast on your cone there. On your sphere, the ball, the yellow ball, see if you can lift some highlight back up into that. Looks like the shadow kind of carried all the way through it and dulled the whole piece there. And then the cube, there's a lot of contrast with the top side is very, very light. And then the side that would be on the left, the green side on the left, got a little bit dark. I don't know if you can notice that. That got a little bit too dark. It looks too much like the shadowed side. So you'd want to lighten that up a little bit, okay? Yeah, the amount of contrast you have in the cone is perfect. And I can barely see the cylinder from that angle. So it's kind of hard to tell, but it looks like that could also use a little more contrast. Yeah, okay, yeah, there's your cone, but I can't see your cylinder at all right now. But the cone looks really good. So, all right, whoa, my goodness, it is so after 9. I really need to go, guys. So yeah, hopefully this will be helpful. If you want to, again, when you've got them all finished, go ahead and post them on the WhatsApp feed, and then I can see them there as well and give you some comments. And my guess is probably I'd say really the best thing would be to try just to finish this off, because after a while it's, you know, I can keep teaching you, but you really have to come to a point where you now really just practice by painting something. And it would be good to, landscapes are good, to try something else, that you're painting something else. Personally, I usually, landscapes are good if you want to do another landscape, but I also often encourage my students to paint animals, okay? Like a close-up of like a head or something like that. Once again, something that really has good highlights and shadows, okay? So that you've got a good amount of contrast. So I would say, because otherwise Wednesday, I'm just sort of thinking if I just, you know, before you start getting into more techniques, you really have to just now practice and practice, because this really is the basics and this is really the foundation. And then after a while, there's all sorts of, like I say, little different tricks and techniques and things like that. But that after a while, you get so much, it's too much. Yeah, it's like having too many tools before you've even learned how to use your basic ones. So that would be my encouragement, would be to you guys, would find a picture of something that you really like, you know, something that's about the level you feel comfortable with, but it's still going to be a challenge. And then you can draw it again with pencil. If you like the idea of the line showing up, then you can do that as well. You know, or then you can draw it in ink, but if you prefer to just do it in pencil, and then have the photo ready. So an animal, something fairly close up, where you're, like if you're drawing an animal like a dog and it's way in the distance and you can't really see the eye or the mouth, and then it's, you know, it's only a couple inches big, and then you're trying to paint that, it just ends up, it really ends up being a mess because you're trying to get all the details. Whereas if it's just like the head of a dog or a cat or a lion or something like that, right? Something like a cheetah, which has some real definite different shapes. But what's really gonna give you the best practice is if it has highlights and shadows, okay? And then, so if you have a photo and you're drawing, and then on Wednesday, we can just make it a session where you guys are just asking me, and I'm just talking to each individually, and then you're all working on your piece. And then as you also listen to me giving other people advice, then, you know, that's also another great way to learn, because what I would be telling them would apply to you as well. So, all right. Does that sound good, everyone?
Sounds good.
Okay.
Yeah, thank you, Rick.
Yeah.
Okay. Did I miss anyone today? Did everyone get?
Me, but that's fine because I messed up and I did it in my journal, and the water paper's so poor that my water was bleeding and my colors were bleeding. It was a bit of a train wreck, but I learned, so it's good.
Okay. Yeah. The quality of paper really matters, so it makes a difference. So, okay. Good seeing you all again this morning. Thanks for joining me, and I look forward to seeing your what you did, seeing stuff posted on the WhatsApp feed.
Okay.
All right.
Bye.